Have you ever met that person, that friend or family member, or maybe it's even you, who is always on sort of the cutting edge? They're always looking out for new opportunities. They're always sort of in tune with what's working right now. So they might have an idea of, they just saw something do really well on Twitter and they're like, oh, dude, you should be posting on Twitter. Here's this amazing thing. Or they might be talking about um, the next big kind of business that's doing really well to start, or the next social media platform, or the next tool or subscription that you should be using on a regular basis. And I realized it's very rewarding psychologically to be exploring all these options, right? There's a novelty to it, there's a thrill, there's a lot of fun in it and discovery. And it is usually effective until you find something, right? Until you commit yourself to one thing, realizing that's the thing you want to really take to 10, 100 million, or $1 billion. And once you're committed to that one thing, then even though you've been rewarded for all of that exploration in the past to discover this thing, now your reward system actually becomes the opposite, where the more you can eliminate distractions, the better you will do. So the more you can say no to all of those opportunities, the more you can, when someone gives you an idea, you say, great, we'll add it to the list of ideas we have, and we'll take a look when we get around to it, right? When we're looking for new ideas to implement. Because the reality is it's very easy to get caught up in other opportunities, right? Like Alex Ramosi talks about this. There was a point in his career where, he would be making a bunch of money and then he'd see of one of his friends making even more money in crypto. And he's like, oh, I got to get into crypto. And a lot of people have that kind of fear of missing out. It's natural. But now he's matured to the point where he realizes he can see someone making like $5 billion doing something else and he'd be like, good for you. But that's not for me, right? I know the way I'm going to make $5 billion is doing my thing. And the reality is, for everyone, the thing that they've committed their lifetime to is likely the thing that's going to grow the biggest, the longest, and the farthest, right? As opposed to constantly switching, looking for the new thing. Now, it's okay to implement the new thing as part of whatever your main thing is, right? So, for example, AI might be relatively new, or agentic AI, or OpenClaw. And so you can implement that in your business, but it doesn't detract from the core focus of your business, which is still serving customers in a specific way, growing in a specific way, and all of that. All you might do is replace some workflows or augment some workflows with agentic AI. That doesn't mean that you are suddenly now an agentic AI business and that's all your focus is, and suddenly everything is AI, AI, AI. And you see some business owners doing this, and I don't think it's going to necessarily end well for them, because it's very hard to pivot your core competencies and become an expert at something completely new, as opposed to finding a way to implement it piecemeal, kind of like evolution, into your business so that it improves incrementally. And over time, it can become a bigger and bigger part of it if it's a viable augmentation, if it's doing a good job, if it's actually improving things. The other thing to consider is that the more you stay focused on just one thing, the more likely you are to get closer to being number one in the world at that one thing. Because everybody you're competing with is also being bombarded with distractions at an increasing rate because of social media and the way our economy and society has been structured. Distractions are kind of the way these companies make money, right? Not only are ads thrown at us all the time, but even in organic content, people are throwing opportunities at us left and right, right? You might be talking to a family member who tells you to invest in a certain stock. You might see a YouTube video telling you to start using a new AI tool. And then you might see an ad telling you to invest in something else or spend your time learning something else. So ultimately, it's on you to decide what your vision is. And once you have that vision, it's very clear, then you can always use that vision as a litmus test of like, okay, this new opportunity, does it help me get to my vision, or does it take me further away compared to what I'm doing right now? And if the answer is it takes you further away, which in many cases it will be, then you say no and you continue doing what you're already doing, knowing that you have plenty of opportunity to pursue other opportunities in the future. And the reality is, the longer you wait generally, the more information you'll have and the better these opportunities tend to get, right? Like, the reality is, most of the time, starting off with something brand new right when it's super early and full of bugs and issues is not the best time, unless you are specifically the kind of person who really wants to spend a lot of time fixing those bugs and you enjoy that. For most people, it makes a lot more sense to wait until it's relatively stable, right, rather than being an alpha or beta tester, and use the finished product and begin to implement it as part of whatever your singular focus is. So I think focus is ultimately the biggest sort of high reward skill that an entrepreneur can focus on and build. But it is a unintuitive thing at first because entrepreneurs early on are rewarded for quitting their job, for switching, focuses, for pivoting, for being flexible. But later on, they're much more rewarded for staying focused, saying no to almost every opportunity, and continuing to drive down that line of whatever their vision is. And you'll see the rewards in, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, when you look back and you realize, wow, I've accomplished so much, I've built so much, and I would not have been able to do that if I had tried to do three or five things at once or kept switching rather than just staying focused on my one path.